Welcome to the Transformation Perspective. It has been a while. Yes, I kind of taken a little leave on dealing with some mental health, which that's what this current season is about. I'm definitely going to try to get back to that. But we've had a crazy last week in America with President Trump being sworn into office and a massive amount of executive orders coming in. More like a blitzkrieg, breaking of a dam, floodgates of executive orders, a tidal wave of executive orders, a meteor shower of executive orders. Whatever analogy you want to use, you can use it, but it's definitely happened. Um, if you make a comparison to anything or you want to study this aspect, what is the reasoning behind this? A lot of it is to flood the market with this, meaning the media market, and create mass chaos, mass confusion. The media doesn't know which one to cover. Can't put all your attention onto everyone because there's a new one coming out constantly. The legal system cannot keep up with it because not all enough resources to fight all these things. So not all of them are going to be fought. It's basically overwhelming the system. I compare it to like anxiety and mental health. This is how I tie it in with this season of mental health is that when your anxiety is through the roof, you literally can't handle anything. It's like your bucket is full already. And you keep adding more to it. It just keeps overflowing and you don't know what to do. So you're gathering paper towels or towels and you're trying to sop it up and you can't do it. So these executive orders just keep coming left and right. But it's at this point where when you say, yes, let's make America great again. And a quick synopsis of this update here is in the last week, we have gone backwards in time to make America great again. Um, and America define what great is by definition. That has never been defined. Um, and again, meaning what? That's the question. In what terms and context do you mean again? How? What is your vision? So you got to use the context of like Trump's vision for again. Is it in his lifetime that he sees where he grew up? Okay, so he's almost 80 years old. So use that time frame. I'm going to quickly try to do math here. That would be approximately what? 1945 he was born ish because he was at 79 when he was sworn in. So 1945. So yeah, the golden age of America was the 1950s and 60s. So that's when America was great, when we had still Jim Crow laws, segregation, women couldn't buy their own home, couldn't have a credit card, couldn't open their bank accounts. Um, Abortion was illegal. Oh, wait, that's happening now. Um, that's what we're getting back to. That's the time frame we want to get to. Yes, I will agree. Is our immigration system broken? 100%. Does it need to be fixed? 100% it needs to be fixed. Through executive orders? No. It needs to be fixed through legislation. Now, can our politicians get the job done? Doesn't seem like it because they haven't been able to get the job done. This has started since probably the Dreamer Act, DACA, all that stuff. We've tried to get stuff passed, but we haven't. We haven't come to an actual good solution. But if you also check out my season one about the 2024 election, I talk about immigration and where it started and the effects that it has on the economy. Then you can go into details of like, oh, maybe that's where we should start, right? You really got to look into immigration and the roots of it and how it's all gotten started and the cause and effect and the push pull factors behind it. Right now, we are just literally putting bandages over it. We're not fixing it. Deport, deport, deport. So basically, we use an executive order to invoke the 1798 Alien Sedation Act. So basically allowing the military to wander around our streets, round up anybody who is printing what the government says false claims against them. Anybody who is in what they say alien, who is not considered American, even though back then we really were still trying to define what American citizenship really was. Um, so yeah, basically ICE can do whatever they want, right? However, no, that's actually not correct. You still have legal rights, even if you are here illegally, right? They can't just barge in, right? Schools have laws, churches separated by church and state, right? All these things, it violates the Second Amendment or First Amendment um, of religion, right? To barge into your place of worship if an illegal is there to worship whatever day they're worshiping. um ICE just barging in, or even schools to rip children out, or anybody. How does that work? School officials being intimidated, and I'm going to read a definition for you. Uh, basically, Webster's dictionary here is saying is that intimidating. That Trump is saying you got to do this. You got to turn people over. Intimidation is to frighten or overawe someone, especially in order to make them do what one wants. In the last week, Trump has basically intimidated the American people and says, you need to do what I say. Also invoking fear upon the American people. An unpleasant emotion caused by the belief that someone or something is dangerous, likely to cause pain or threat. It's all propaganda, right? We generate fear through some kind of propaganda, right? Trump goes on Hannity and says, yeah, well, all these countries are unleashing their prisoners into this country. Well, didn't you also just release like 1600 January 6th prisoners onto the American people, right? By pardoning. Don't every president, pardon criminals? So aren't we being hypocritical about this and sending him here and we do it ourselves? So stop being hypocritical about that. So we try to invoke fear, saying that's the only ones that are coming here. It's propaganda. The US is very good at using propaganda to incite fear into the American people to hate other people. It's to drive a wedge through and divide us as Americans. We're already divided politically, so divided. Now it's to divide us even more. Divide and conquer, right? That's the old phrase, right? Divide and conquer. Another word I need to look up based off this last week is coercion. The practice of persuading someone to do something by using force or threat. Pretty sure Trump has done this. In the news, Colombia basically saying, you're going to take back our deportations of Colombians. And Colombia's like, no, we're not. Not until you start treating them with dignity as humans. Like, fine, I'm going to slap a 25 to 50% tariff on you, or something like that, that Trump says, on your everything that we're taking, that you're giving us. Okay. So Colombia kind of backs down for now. That's coercion. It's that threat, trying to persuade them. Also, The diversity, equity, inclusion, basically the executive order saying, you know what, everyone in the federal government and staff agencies that you need to now report if anybody is doing this. You need to you need to report everybody or you're going to face severe consequences. That is coercion. That's intimidation. It's as simple as that. Well, maybe it's not as simple as that, but still. So all those factors play in. All Trump is doing is trying to use that immunity that was granted to him by the Supreme Court, right? See how far he can drive his executive powers, flood the system with executive orders, and not let the legislative branch even do its job. They're in a tight situation anyway in the House and Senate. Does Trump believe that I can't get anything passed anyway because it's too tight, too narrow? So I'm just going to have legal challenges made. So for at least the next 2 years, nothing's going to get done in this country because the executive orders will be constantly challenged, even like today, freezing all of the federal funds. What was it some $1 trillion of federal funds? I'm looking that one up today too, and that heavily violates several aspects of the Constitution. The president does not have the authority. It is not a presidential power. He cannot implement any kind of executive order dealing with any kind of funding. So presidents cannot decide how federal money will be spent. So he cannot freeze any of these assets. That is now unconstitutional. But I'm pretty sure Trump, 1 week ago, took the oath of office saying he's going to uphold the Constitution. He's not doing that. However, would there be an impeachment because he's not upholding the Constitution? No, because no one has the courage to stand up against him on the conservative side. There's so much fear that if they do, he's going to intimidate them, use coercion, fear tactics to make sure they never get elected to power. That's not democracy. Pretty sure the Constitution says we the people. And that's what it's about. Not I the president. But for the last, since what, 2016, if you don't back Trump, it's all about intimidation. It's all about the coercion. It's all about if you don't back this, I'm going to make sure you don't stay in power. That's not government. That is not for the people, by the people. That is not democracy. And if you paid attention to my season 1, when it comes to the Enlightenment and the social contract theory that the founding principles of this country were founded on, was that if the government does not uphold our natural rights of life, liberty, right, and property, which we've changed to pursuit of happiness, and that's loosely defined, but even life and liberty are defined under the 14th Amendment. If the government breaks the social contract, we have the power in a democracy to overthrow it. Now, Constitution goes like, oh, if you overthrow the government, it's treason. Harper, it's treason, right? That's what you're saying. No, I'm not saying that. then we declare a new independence. Just like in 1776. Maybe it's time that we declare our second independence. It's a bold thing to say from a social scientist, but how divided is this country? If you really look at it, right versus left, conservative versus liberal, Democrat, Republican, right? MAGA versus what they say socialist, government overreach versus government overreach. I'm pretty sure that no matter what you want to look at it, the MAGA movement is massive government overreach. The left can do government overreach. It's all there. Both sides do it. Both sides point fingers at each other, but pretty sure if you look, when you're pointing your finger at each other, there's also three fingers pointing back at you. And also what I use is the guilty party only has to look in the mirror. So some aspects here, if you're looking for coercion laws and maybe future executive orders that we might have to worry about, is just keep this in mind. 42 US Code 3617, the interference, coercion, and intimidation. All right. This states it shall be unlawful to coerce, intimidate, or interfere with any person in the exercise or enjoyment of or account of his having exercised or enjoyed or an account of his having aided or encouraged any other person in the exercise or enjoyment of any right granted or protected by the section of 3603. It's the dwellings owned, operated by federal government, dwellings provided by in a whole, in part with the loans of the government. Oh, wait, that's right. Trump used an executive order to halt federal funds and loans. So technically, Trump is also violating the 42 US Code 363, the dwellings one, because that involves with loans. Also in that one is 3064, discrimination in the sale and rental of housing and other prohibited practices. This would be based on refusing to sell or rent a dwelling to any person because of race, color, religion, sex, family status, or national origin. So that means that includes undocumented immigrants. We cannot be discriminating against them. Oh, that's also included trans people. That seems to be the target that Trump is going after now, right? So you can't discriminate against them. That is coercion, right? Also, 3605, discrimination in residential real estate related transaction because of race, color, religion, sex, handicap, family status, or national origin. So, once again, the sale of real estate, you cannot discriminate based on that, as well as discrimination in the provision of brokerage services, basically the sale of aspects. So, all this, you know, also kind of loophole laws that you find because this is what great politicians with lawyers do. Here's a wonderful loophole that I found with coercion that we could use on politicians. I know it's hard, you can't really sue them, but we can definitely bring a case against the federal government because we always can sue the federal government. We just can't sue individuals. So the idea of coercion is we can say if there's a credible information of coercion can be brought by civil society organizations. Okay? So civil society, that would be basically civil Civilian organizations, if there's credible evidence that coercion is taking place in the federal government, we can file suit. But how do you stop coercion or intimidation or corruption from within? You go back to the Enlightenment idea and you go back to the social contract. Is there a violation of our social contract here? That's what it comes down to. Also, here, another loophole that I'm looking at is potentially is a violation of the 10th Amendment. The federal government is prohibited from commandeering state government and state resources. You can make the argument that these funds that Trump froze are state resources like SNAP, WIC, Head Start programs, Medicare, all these, like, what's up in the air? What's happening? Violates the 10th Amendment. So I'm pretty sure that the president has all this immunity. At what point does the president get held accountable? At what point does his staff, his cabinet, and the politicians in Washington get held accountable for violating the Constitution? At what point are they above the law? Pretty sure they're not. Supreme Court justices aren't. The president shouldn't be, nor should anybody. They're there to protect our rights. And it seems like we are restricting rights, banning trans people from the military. Well, I guess the good news is then you affirm me. Thank you for doing that, Mr. President. Affirming the existence of trans people, even though in your speech you said there's only two genders, male and female, and you did affirm me that trans people exist. So it goes against what you said and your executive order that you signed, because in your executive order, you basically are saying that there's only two, but now you acknowledge that trans people exist and you ban them. Yeah, it's kind of hypocritical, and it's like a paradox of time travel kind of there. It's weird. Um, so yeah, just saying. Um, but yeah, I do want to thank all military service men and women um, for everything they've done. I know I couldn't do it, so I'm proud of you for putting your lives on the line. I know probably this administration is going to be very difficult because they are removing military personnel, and now we're banning people from joining. It looks like maybe potentially women might be barred from joining the military. Um, it's a weird time. So those who have served or are serving, thank you. I really do appreciate you. I really value that I still live in America and I still have whatever freedoms I still have left because of your honor of serving. I now, unfortunately, if I ever wanted to, can't join the military anymore because I'm trans. Seems a little discriminatory, don't you think? But we've done that in the past. We have to a lot of different groups of people, barring them from joining the military, right? Um, and then we banned, transgender care for anyone under 19. And we could go down a rabbit hole and you can make the argument, but also, depending on this executive order and how language is written in it, would also bar cis people from that care as well. That means if there's a little girl who starts developing puberty at age 5, 6, 7, 8, you can't get puberty blockers no more. That's a bummer. A 16-year-old, 17-year-old that has a girl that has really large breasts and it's causing a lot of health problems because, yeah, large breasts can cause a lot of back problems. Can't have breast reduction because it's life altering. Things we don't think about. We target one, but it's like dropping a pebble into the pond. It makes a ripple effect that affects everybody. Goes back to that fear. Fear definition, an unpleasant emotion caused by the belief that someone or something is dangerous, likely to cause pain or threat. What threat am I and the trans community? What threat have I caused? What harm have I caused? What pain have I caused? Being a social scientist, I study this stuff. I examine the evidence. We are now once again in another time period where we target a group of people in this country. First, it started with indigenous people. That lasted for quite some time. And then we colonized, and then we targeted some religious groups that were coming over here. Then we targeted certain European groups because they weren't English. Then we started targeting, imported slaves, women. And then immigrants started really pouring in from other countries, not just Europe. And we really started targeting them. Then after the Civil War, you have Jim Crow era for 100 years, civil rights movement, the feminist movement, um, LGBTQ movement still also. It just goes on and on. We just want to attack people. Communists, go after them. Everyone's a communist. Everyone's a Nazi. Oh, you're a Jew. We're not going to let you in. Oh, you're Chinese. We're not going to let you in. Oh, you're Japanese. We're going to lock you up. We tend to do this in America. This is what makes America great? I don't think so. What makes America great is that we are a melting pot. We are the melting pot of the world. We have to continue to learn from our actions to continue to grow. Here's your education here mindset right now. What I see it as is Trump's got the fixed mindset. I don't want to grow in any kind of way. I want to live in the past. I actually want to go back to the past and have a fixed mindset. I also don't want to have this growth mindset. The only growth that he wants is back to imperialism by expansion of taking over Canada, taking over Greenland, and taking over the Panama Canal. But that's all for resources. Why does he want that? It's for resources. And why does he want the resources? Scarcity. And the only reason why they're scarce is because he's affirming the fact that climate change is real. If we drill, pump the climate full of more fossil fuels, we speed up the process of climate change, we get Canada and Greenland, all that ice sheets melts, it's all livable climate now going more north, all that resource is exposed. The US now has that territory. We can gobble up those resources. And all it is affirming that climate change is real without ever saying climate change is real. It's like saying, hey, we're banning trans people from the military, but I just affirmed you. So we're also affirming climate change is real. So social scientists are the ones who you don't want to challenge because we have the knowledge, because knowledge is power and enthusiasm throws that switch. That's the beauty of it. We are in very unprecedented times. I saw a wonderful stat posted today. I'm trying to remember it. That 49% of Americans voted for Trump, 49 point whatever, and like 50 point something voted against Trump. Okay, so that's like half glass full, half glass empty kind of look, right? However you want to look at it. That's a divided nation. That's a very, very divided nation. That's how I look at it. That is not a united nation. That is something that's continuous to divide us. Do we have our issues? Absolutely. Do we have a border problem? Absolutely. Do we have an education problem? Yes, we do. Right? Do we have a family issue? Yes, we do. Do we need to be family first? Yes. Do we need to invest in the future? Absolutely. But all these ideas about let's go to the past to invest in the future aren't working. There are so many better solutions and innovations that now we're blocking. But the beauty thing of this is every one of us has a voice. Every one of us has a voice, and every one of you in America has a different kind of voice. Some of your voices will support the MAGA movement. Some of the voices will support the conservative movement, not the MAGA movement. Some you support more the moderate. Some you support more heavy liberal. Some you support really more heavy social reforms. We all have voices. So, what I also see is a lot of TikToks, a lot of Facebook message and Instagram saying, hey, how you gonna get through the next 4 years? It's only 4 years. We can make it through 4 years. And almost like I'm reading in there, it's like, just be silent. Silence is not going to get us anywhere. It takes a lot of courage and a lot of bravery to speak. Your voice doesn't have to be loud. You don't have to have charisma to be a public speaker. You can be intimidated by crowds. It doesn't matter because a small whisper can be carried by the wind. But when you add a crowd, a stadium of whispers, it becomes a roar. And that becomes intimidating. That becomes fearful. You might think there's nothing we can do. I just taught some lessons on Martin Luther King Jr., since it was Martin Luther King Day last week, Monday. And what can you learn about a movement is you have a voice in it. You don't have to give up. You don't have to remain silent because advocating and supporting and educating yourself is the first step. Be a voice, be a whisper in the wind, because that whisper becomes a howl. And when the howls all begin to join, it becomes a massive roar. And that leads to a movement. This is not okay. You have half America that thinks this is a great thing, probably. This is great. This is awesome what we're doing. But at the same time, are they looking for long term effects? What are the long term effects? Sociological perspective is the manifest function and the latent function. Manifest function is known as the intended consequences behind what you're doing. The latent function is the unintended consequences of what you're doing, what you don't anticipate at all. So there's an intention on things. And that's what people want. They want the instant results. Promises made, promises kept, Trump said. We want instant results. If it disrupts your daily lives by freezing all federal funding, then you don't realize how much that your daily life is affected by federal funding. When are grocery prices coming down? Oh, wait, that's right. That's a complex issue. Watch my economy report in season 1. So, be a voice. You might not have the courage or bravery, but courage and bravery has to start somewhere. It's rooted somewhere. Because you might have a family member, you might have a neighbor, you might have a friend who's trans, who's a legal immigrant, who might be getting targeted now. Because they are, trust me, they are. Right? Trump's administration isn't going after just legals or illegals. They're also checking legal immigrants that have come here to make sure every paperwork they've got is done correctly. That's not okay either. So if you don't think none of this is going to affect you, oh, it is. Like you said, when those workers are gone from the agricultural fields, no one's picking those crops. And Trump said, I'm going to bring down food prices. What do you think is going to happen to those food prices? If workers are scarce, you don't have crops, they become scarce. Scarcity drives up price. So careful. Be careful what you vote for. Be careful what you ask for. If you're uninformed and uneducated, this is what happens. We need to invest into the future. Actions don't start 4 years from now. to prepare for the future and invest in the future, they start a week ago. Prepare for 2026, to prepare for 2028, to prepare for 2030, 2040. It's to invest in the future. But it seems like the last few years in America, we've been stuck in a 4-year rut cycle and we aren't getting anywhere because we want to undo what the former administration did. Trump undoes Obama. Biden comes in and undoes what Trump did. Trump now comes in and undoes what Biden did. Wow, we're not getting anywhere. It's time for some new ideas. We need a new constitution, maybe a new Declaration of Independence. Just saying, from your social scientist. Just saying. Thanks for watching The Transformation Perspective. This has been a special update called The Voice. I've been your host, Harper. I will try to get back to mental health as I am still going through my own mental health and trying to navigate those, but I couldn't keep my voice silent on this anymore. So thank you for watching. Thank you for support. Subscribe, like, share. Love you all. Take care.